What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Coronavirus Sports Boredom Show. This is Ethan, here with my man JD. And
Ethan, hold up. My time to shine today, dude. No more talking for you. All right, everyone. So we got another edition of HHH coming at you here. Ethan is actually a contestant today. So, Ethan, you all pumped and ready?
I'm ready for this, man.
All right, and we got three other guests, and they're all joining right now. We have JT, Daryl, and Breckin. And we got Daryl. Daryl, wave your hand, do whatever you want. JT in the headphones over here. We got Breckin, the first champion of HHH, joining us back again. So our order is going to go Ethan, Daryl, JT, Breckin. Ethan, you're going to be first. Daryl second. JT third. Breckin fourth. Same rules as last time. Any questions, anyone, before we start? All good? All right, so we're going to start off with a little arbitrary question here. See how controversy goes. Ethan, starting off with you. LeBron or Kobe? Who's the better player?
Oh, man. Well, they're obviously both great players in a different way. It's very hard to choose between them because they play different positions. LeBron doesn't really play a position at all. But on the sheer merit of numbers, without using my heart and with only using my head, I would have to give LeBron a slight edge here. He's managed to keep up a higher scoring average than Kobe, while they both have insane usage rates. Kobe doing more to create shots for himself than LeBron, along with 7.4 rebounds and 7.4 assists for a career, which is pretty insane. That said, Kobe was great for his position in those categories as well, 5.2 rebounds, 4.7 assists, while doing a lot to create shots for himself. You know, it's really difficult to determine between the two because they play different positions. Obviously, LeBron has the edge of size. But on sheer numbers, I would have to give the King a slight edge here, as much as I love Kobe as well.
Good, bro.
All right, Daryl, you're up.
So I would absolutely agree with Ethan. Like, of course, like LeBron is he's third in the all-time scoring list over Kobe, and he's played less games than Kobe, and throughout his whole season, he's been more consistent with his points. He's only scored once under 25, while Kobe's career stat for points is 25 points. And so I would just say consistency throughout his whole season. He's been great. And, yeah.
JT?
Yeah, I don't have statistics like these boys. I don't know any numbers here because I came in with no research. But I think I'm gonna go against the grain here. I think I'm gonna say Kobe, just because I feel like Kobe has more of a mentality for the game than LeBron. Like LeBron, obviously he backs stats and he knows what he's doing on the court. But I feel like just Mamba mentality. Kobe knows what he's doing on the court, and he has more of a wide strain of everything going on the court. I just think LeBron isn't on the same wavelength as Kobe. And I just think points mean everything, but at the same time, I feel like there's other things that influence runner-up for between LeBron and Kobe. And I think Kobe just has an edge on him in well-roundedness. So.
Okay, well, I agree with JT. If you look at who's the best player of all time, obviously it's Michael Jordan. And if you look at Kobe Bryant, he's pretty much the exact same, but slightly not as good in my opinion. But still, if you look at the GOAT, and he's literally a replica of the GOAT. And I agree with JT with the mentality, bro. LeBron, he's a smart player. Most of the time he uses it to his advantage. Sometimes it could be used against him when he passes up the last shot. Now, Kobe, you never see him passing up the last shot. He's going to go right at the defense and without everything he has, and just that mentality gives him the edge. I think LeBron, he's just a dog.
Breckin, your audio went a little out there, but we heard you enough. All right, so moving on to the second question. We have Daryl starting this one, then JT, then the Breckin, then the Ethan. Daryl, I'm going to be asking you a similar question that I just asked you all, starting with Ethan. But this is going to be, who is the greatest Laker of all time.
All right, greatest Laker, you said? Greatest Laker. Well, there are a lot of Lakers players, of course. But yeah, I'd probably say Kobe. You know, like, he's like one of the best scorers in the league. You see his averages and all that stuff. He didn't carry, but I would say he's led the Lakers to a lot of championships and finals and playoffs throughout the playoffs in the 2000s. And just, yeah, he has that killer Mamba instinct.
GG?
Yeah, no doubt Kobe. That's obviously a very obvious pick, but we can't discredit other Laker players like Magic, Shaq, and Kareem. Like, I feel like those are top tier not Kobe players, Laker players that have stood out in like the entire game of basketball. But I love how Kobe plays. I love how Magic plays, Kareem, Shaq. But I feel like just because Kareem is at the top of its league, right, like at the top of everything, like all-time scoring list, everything, I feel like Kareem has an edge. But at the same time, if we're counting like the best Laker of all time, I'd give it to Kobe, but I think Kareem is a second.
Yeah, interesting there. And I like how you said at first, but you corrected yourself. You said best Kobe of all time. You meant to say Laker, but that was funny because Kobe identifies Lakers. But anyways, moving on to Breckin.
All right. Well, I agree with Daryl with saying Kobe and well JT too. Obviously, there's good players like Magic, Shaq, Kareem stuff. I think it's most time to Magic and Kobe. I guess like Shaq and Kareem, they played for other teams. They weren't like a Laker their whole career. So I guess I take a little bit off of that for them. But I say Kobe and Magic, probably Kobe though.
All right, Ethan.
Okay, so I mean, you can't go against what everybody else is saying with Kobe Bryant being the best of all time in a Laker uniform. In fact, he's one of the best players of all time. You can't deny that he's the best Laker. You know, obviously, we got LeBron James, who's literally just started his career with the Lakers, so you can't really consider him at this point. Pretty much literally everything in the league that Kobe did was in a Laker uniform. And it's surprising because as many great players have passed through the purple and gold, so many of them have not spent their entire career there. You think about Shaq, some of his best years with other teams. Wilt Chamberlain's best years, and I love Wilt. He's one of the greatest of all time. His best years were in San Francisco. And the best players, the actual best, full-time Lakers, guys who spent pretty much their entire career with that team, other than Kobe, I would say are Magic and Jerry West. Jerry West, it's hard to argue with a guy who scored 27 points a game. I mean, in an era without the three-point line, no less. He was absolutely insane, but he didn't play long enough to really get consideration as the top dog in a Laker uniform. Similar thing with Magic, unfortunate situation with the HIV virus causing him to miss time. But to me, those guys didn't quite have the length of their careers or necessarily, at least in the case of Magic, the stats of Kobe Bryant. So I would have to give it to Kobe with Magic and Jerry West right there, and shout-outs to a bunch of greats like Wilt and like Shaq who just didn't spend their whole career as Lakers.
Yeah. All good points, all interesting there. So we're going to the third question here. We're going to start with JT. So JT, who is the greatest franchise of all time?
Yeah, that's a great question, and a lot of people came to mind, and but I honestly, just looking back on the history of the NBA, just looking back on like how many championships a franchise has won, I just feel like the top three is going to be in order. Top three is the Bulls, second is Lakers, and then the first is definitely the Celtics, just because the championships outrank a lot of the other franchises out there. So I'm going to give it to the Celtics, but runners up is Lakers and Bulls. So
Yeah, that's an interesting point there. I think Breckin had a little Wi-Fi issue. Breckin, you still with us?
I think he's working on his mic.
Yeah. So we'll go to Ethan real fast. We'll come back to Breckin. Ethan.
Yeah, to me, it's incredibly close, and I agree with JT's tier list. I think those are far and away the top three. I think the one that is not really in the conversation as much, and it pains me as a Bulls fan to say it, but it's the Chicago Bulls because their win percentage lifetime, career-wise, of 513, as well as having a few less championships, doesn't really have them in the top conversation. But they make this tier list simply, and it just shows how great Jordan and the Jordan era was that has put them onto that tier list for me. But really, it's a two-horse race between the Lakers and the Boston Celtics. Celtics with 17 titles, Lakers with 16. But for me, I'm going to have to give, and I love Boston, I love the Celtics, but I have to give a slight edge to the Lakers. They have a slight edge in overall winning percentage, 594 to 590. They're only a couple seasons younger than the Celtics. And more importantly, the Lakers championships have been spread out in more eras. Boston won 11 championships in basically one era with the great Red Auerbach and Bill Russell as a player coach for a bit. Those were great teams, but I would have to give the edge to the Lakers. Despite one less championship, they've won throughout more eras. They have a slightly better winning percentage, and they've played almost as many games.
Yeah, that's good. Breckin, you're up right now. The question is, who is the greatest franchise of all time?
Okay. You can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Obviously, comes down to two teams. You guys probably already mentioned them, the Lakers and the Celtics. I believe the Celtics have one more championship than them, than the Lakers. So it's hard to decide between the two. I'd have to give it to the Celtics, though, just because I feel like, especially back in the day, they were just dominant with Bill Russell, 11 championships. They were just crazy good. Obviously, back then, they were really good. Right now, Lakers are probably the better team, arguably. But, like, the Celtics have always had, like, good teams. They've always been, like, solid. Same with the Lakers, but I would have to give the edge to the Celtics. Especially this year. I would say the Celtics are better, but, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, you heard me.
Daryl, you're the last one up here.
Hold up. So I'd have to go with Ethan, with the Lakers. It's the greatest franchise of all time. Like, as he said, like, all the Celtics championships were basically won around in the same era. And, like, the Lakers are more spread apart. The Lakers also, like, have, like, way more better players that they coach and, like, had throughout the whole NBA. And, yeah.
Yeah, it's good right there. Yeah, add that up right there. Okay. So, Daryl, you're going to start our next question, actually. My next question for you is, right now, and these four questions right here all tie back to each other little by little. Right now, who is the best franchise? And if you were a player, like, going to the league, where would you want to go to? Like, what's exciting about franchises now? Like, you got the Warriors a couple years ago, just blossom. The Heat in the 21st century have become very evident as a good franchise. So my question now is not who's the greatest franchise of all time, but right now, if you're a young player coming in, who's the greatest franchise that you just want to go to?
Yeah, if I was in, like, just joining the NBA, I'd actually want to go to the Warriors, bro. Like, if you see what they're doing the last few years, I mean, getting championships, and of course this last two or like season, bro, they haven't been on their field like as like 2016, 2017. But, like, that's because of injuries. Steph Curry's out, Klay Thompson's out. But, like, the whole coaching staff and, like, front office know how to, like, develop players that would be assets to Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, who are basically their star players. And they know how to, like, make a full team, like, not just bring in, like, a few stars, just of them, and then have, like, a terrible bench. You see the Warriors are, like, developing their whole bench, and, like, they're bringing in people on their starting lineups. But, yeah, I'd probably want to choose with the Warriors.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah. Okay.
so
Ethan. Yeah.
before everybody laughs at Daryl, I think he's got a great point here because the Warriors, as bad as they've been doing, they're going to be a top-tier franchise in no time when they get everybody healthy. and they've been developing young players as well. They've showed they could do it. I think that's a great place for a young player to go. But still, my current top team in the league, I'd have to go with the Milwaukee Bucks. That's a team that has one top-tier star in Giannis and a complementary all-star in Chris Middleton, as opposed to the big twos out west with the Clips and the Lakers. I think they play better as a team. They obviously benefit from a slightly weaker Eastern Conference schedule, but they had the best record this year until they lost their last 3 games. So I would take the Bucks as number one. Other teams as a young player that I would consider going to, shout-outs to the Mavericks. That's a team I'd be hyped to join. People love playing with Luka. I think that's been that's a franchise in good position to be good for a long time. I'm not saying they're the top team, but that would be a very exciting team to join to play alongside Porzingis and play with Luka. There's so much hype surrounding that franchise. I think that would be fun. But also the Warriors, like you're saying. But number one top team in the league, and one that would be great to join as a young player, I'd go with the Milwaukee Bucks.
Interesting picks there, Ethan. JT.
Yeah, there's a couple that come into mind in regards to top tier franchises currently. Obviously, the Lakers. I think up there is probably the Raptors as well. I wouldn't discredit the Raptors, and like Rockets, like Bucks. They're big teams right now, but I feel like one team that sticks out to me for some reason for a new player and a young player to go to is either the Raptors or the Pelicans, just because I feel like Zion has so much to offer, as well as Drew Holiday. Like there's teams and they're young too. Like you think Lakers, you got LeBron. He's getting old, right? I'm not saying his skill's going down, but he's up there. He's getting up in there in age. And Anthony Davis is still young and healthy, but the Lakers doesn't have much to offer apart from those 2 players, and I feel like that's the reason why, is because they're a big duo. But in regards to for a young player to go, that's tough. But I'd say either I'm not sure about the Bucks, but I think either Pelicans or Raptors, just because they're both 2 very young teams, and I feel like another young star could fit with them. So yeah.
And interesting there. Breckin, you're next.
I disagree about the Warriors. I don't think they'll get to where they were a few years ago or even like last year, especially with losing Kevin Durant, their best player. In my opinion, he was their best player. But if I'm a young guy and I'm joining a team, I'd want to be drafted by the Heat. Obviously, they've shown that they've been able to win. They've been able to play championship basketball. Eric Spoelstra is a great coach, especially right now. They've been able to bounce back ever since LeBron left, and they really are good at implementing younger guys like Tyler Hero, Kendrick Nunn, and they're not like these big teams with like super high caliber all stars. They have Jimmy Butler and Bam. They're really good like team players, and they can help out the younger guys. And they have a really deep team, deep bench. They implement everyone. Everyone has equal playing time. I'm pretty sure towards like the beginning of the season, like there was no like clear score on the team. Everyone scored like the most players had like double digits out of like any other team. They're a very well-rounded team, great coaching, good office, everything. I just think that's the team I'd want to be at if I'm a young player.
Well, that concludes round 1. So one person will be eliminated here. And surprisingly, well, not even really surprisingly, everyone's very close. There's no really front runner from what I scored. Right now, Ethan sits at 11 points for the first round. Daryl sits at 10 points for the first round. Oh, actually, no, sorry. Daryl, you have 11. My bad. Sorry, Daryl. You were tied with Ethan. JT, you're also at 11. It's got a 3-way tie right there. And Breckin, you're not going yet. So we're going to have an extra round right here. So I'm going to ask a question to you all. This is going to decide whether you're eliminated or not. All right? So all your mics are unmuted right now. We're going to start with JT. You get 10 seconds, about 15, however you can answer it. It's one question to you. Who is the best player right now in the NBA? This is a tiebreaker. Goes JT first. Go.
LeBron.
All right, simple. Not even just one word. All right, Daryl, you're next.
Harden. Scoring ability, bro. He's up there.
All right, Breckin.
Kawhi Leonard,
Oh, okay. Ethan.
offensive and defensive.
Ethan.
All right. I got to go Giannis. I think he's playing in the midst of a team system, leading his team to victory. Plays great defense and offense. He's been outstanding at both ends of the floor, starting to add a three-point shot as well. His power and, despite what Harden said, skill have been terrific this year and throughout his career.
Okay, and then Ethan, we're gonna start with you again, real fast. This is the last one. Who is the best team in the league? Who would win it all? Who would win it all?
The best team in the league. It's close for me between the Bucks and the Lakers. Bucks have a slightly better record, though that benefits from a weaker Eastern Conference. I would still say that the Bucks are the more well-rounded team, playing with the one superstar and a complementary star in Middleton. I would give the slight edge to the Bucks. The Lakers are a fantastic team as well as to go along with their two superstars.
Okay, Breckin.
I'd say the Clippers, especially come playoff time with Kawhi and Paul George.
Okay, Daryl.
I'd have to go with the Lakers, but obviously I'd pick the second is Milwaukee because they're all rounded, but like Lakers, they have some sort of experience with Danny Green and LeBron, so I'd have to give it to them.
Okay, JT.
I think I'd have to say Lakers as well, but it'd come close between Bucks, Clippers, and Lakers, obviously. But I just feel like Lakers have a better relationship with each other, like especially between the two of LeBron and Davis. So I think just they're going to get the chip if we kept going with this season.
Man, you guys are impossible to deal with. Jeez, this is so close. Well, man, this is tight. See, right now, I do have a tie for whoever's going to be eliminated. I'm not going to tell you who, because I'm going to ask you all for one. This has to be, I'm sorry, guys, but this is a hard one. There's two of you who are about to be eliminated. I'm going to ask a controversial question here. Okay. If you 10 years ago, right about LeBron was about at the peak of his career. When he was on the Heat, you had Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh. Those are the two big guys right there. Then you had the Celtics also in the Eastern Conference. So between the Heat and the Celtics, who had a better legacy with the Celtics battling the Lakers and then losing out to the Heat and the Heat taking over the East? Who had the better legacy between those two teams?
Who's up for this one?
We'll start with what's that, Daryl?
I had to go with the Heat. They were much more dominant, like 10 years ago. Of course, they're winning their championships in 2012, 2013, and yeah.
Okay, Breckin.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I'd say the Heat. Obviously, they're probably more remembered for like one of the best duos of all time with LeBron and Dwayne Wade. And I think that the Celtics, a lot of their better players were towards the end of the career, not like they were like washed or anything, but towards the end of their career with like Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, those players were more older. So I'd have to give it to the Heat. I think they were more dominant. Yeah, they had a deeper bench, in my opinion.
JT.
Yeah, I honestly agree with both of them because like in 2010 it was Lakers, and then it was like the Mavs, which were against the Heat as well, which was with LeBron and Wade. But then upcoming, they kept going and they kept that legacy going. And from that point on, they kept showing that they were the best in the league, and they kept on, and they won 2 championships back to back right after that. So I think that just goes to show that the Heat were better back then than the Celtics. So.
All right, so it depends what you mean on best legacy. Don't get me wrong, the Celtics, the Big Three, had a great legacy. Remember watching on ESPN or whatever their 2008 championship. Such an awesome thing, such an awesome story for that city. And I would say they have perhaps a purer legacy and one that's more worth remembering. The Heat, with LeBron going there and all that, it was kind of surrounded by awkwardness, but still, that's what you think of from that era. That team has left a more lasting impact on the game with their Big Three, and more so duo than the Celtics' Big Three.
Right. Well, we do have one person who's going to be eliminated. And it was a tough one, guys, but I'm sorry to say, Daryl.
Oh, shoot.
You're out, my man. I'm sorry, dude, but it was a good run. It was very close, Daryl. Good job. But I had a problem with your first early rounds. You didn't do as well. Then you improved greatly in the very last question. You actually saved yourself from getting eliminated in the very last question. And then you said Harden was the best player in the league, which is interesting. I like the priority. I like that. But then you said the Heat in this last question, which made you go on the edge, but you didn't really give enough credit to, I feel, like the other team. So I don't know, but I feel like the other guys did a little better job. It was very close, but Daryl, I'm sorry to say you're out. So adios, Daryl. Good job.
See you, man.
So now we have our final three, and remember, so right now our leader is actually Ethan. He's in first. JT's 1 point behind Ethan, and Breckin, you're 1 point behind JT. So you're all very neck and neck close.
Very close.
Ethan's also leader in time talked.
Let's take that into account, boys. Take that into account. Knock off a couple points.
I actually have things to say.
I mean, hey, each man to his own. But again, Daryl did a really good job too. He saved himself at the end, but the early rounds, I just had a can. Sorry, Daryl. But all right, we're gonna start our second round. Ethan, you're the first man up. My question to you right now is, let me load it. Sorry, got out of it. The greatest coach of all time. Go.
All right. So to me, this is a two-horse race between the great Red Auerbach coaching the Celtics way back when and Phil Jackson of the Bulls and later of the Lakers. And these guys are both outstanding. Jackson 11 championships, Auerbach with 9. But I'm going to have to give the slight edge to Phil Jackson. This is a dude who won 6 straight championships with 2 different teams. He didn't miss a beat after the Last Dance, the so-called Last Dance. He won 3 more right away with the LA Lakers. That's 6 with Chicago, 5 with the Lakers. And no disrespect to Auerbach, he won 9 titles, but they were all with the same team. So I think Phil proved that his system, he can implement his system in different teams a little more than Auerbach. And you can credit the coach a little more in that case with what he was able to do. Also, Bill Russell took over Auerbach's team and as a player coach won 2 more championships. So was Auerbach the reason they were winning? Was he a huge contributor? It's a lot harder to say. Overall, these guys are both outstanding. I think they're both outstanding coaches. But Jackson's ability to do it in different times, in different systems, and ultimately win a couple more championships of a slightly more impressive record. To me, he's the guy who probably was doing more for his teams in different systems. So I got to give the slight edge and the GOAT coach to Phil Jackson.
JC?
Yeah, I have to agree with the Phil Jackson answer. I feel like he really proved himself as a coach, but I wouldn't discredit Popovich because he is one of the greatest coaches of all time in the fact that he has trained a team for so long and knows how the game of basketball better than I feel like any other coach, in the fact that he knows how to play a good offense with a good team. Like if you watch any Spurs game from 2016, 2017, maybe 2014 or 15, you see that their offense tears up any defense. They move the ball well. You see them move the ball. Everyone gets the ball. I just like watching how Pop coaches his team because you see the diversity within the game. But I still give Phil Jackson the edge just because championships means championships, and it's just facts. But Pop is definitely up there. I don't think we should discredit him.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with JT. I think that Greg Popovich, definitely we should talk about him. He's a very good coach. He's pretty much a lock to make the playoffs. He makes his team better, implements a selfless style of basketball, moving the ball around. But yeah, I'd have to agree with Ethan in the long run about Phil Jackson, and especially since watching the Last Dance. I just give him so much credit. I didn't even know that he he coached overseas and stuff, and then came to the NBA. But so yeah, overall, I'd say Phil Jackson because he's able to win with Chicago with star players and in LA too.
All right, starting with JT on this question. Now, we all know Harden, Westbrook, and Durant were together, and those 3 would have done something special together. everyone would say that, right? Harden left, got traded. We didn't leave. KD left. KD went to the Warriors to get his rings. Now, there was a comment by Mark Cuban when they were playing each other, the Thunder and the Mavs. Mark Cuban said, KD's the only superstar on this team. And it was a famous clip where KD grabbed the mic and said, Russ, don't answer that. He's just being stupid. He's an idiot. So, I'm going to ask you this. Was Russell Westbrook an all-star? Was he an elite player at that moment, right when the Thunder were at the peak, when they went to the championship that year, and when KD won MVP ultimately? Or did KD have to leave in order for Russell to blossom into who he is now?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I don't know. That takes some thinking. I feel like when KD backed his boy, it was more like they both knew that they were big players. Like the world saw OKC and knew that their top players were KD and Russ. Like I know all of us here, I think, can agree that KD is superior in this conversation. But in regards to him leaving, I feel like that did do Russ good because you see his stats. He packs triple doubles left and right. So I feel like, yes, in the way you said it, him leaving did make Russ blossom in a way. But I don't know. I feel like, yeah, I think it was better that he left because it really made, I feel like the rage, I guess, the anger that it gave to Russ really it motivated him to play because we got snakes like KD. But honestly, in the end of it, he still gave Russ a motive to get better. And I think that's the reason why he still came out and played every single game to the best of his ability. So.
All right, Breckin.
Yeah, I think everyone can admit that he was all-star at that time. Obviously, he got better after KD left because obviously you have to fill a gap without having a star player like KD. Obviously, he picked up scoring, passing, like triple doubles, as JT said. And obviously, you just look at Kevin Durant's response. Obviously, basketball players know basketball players pretty well. Like you can tell when someone's good. Maybe like analysts and stuff will be like, oh, they're not good, but game recognizes the game, as like the saying goes. And just the way KD answered, he's like, yeah, he's an idiot. Obviously, he doesn't know what he's talking about. So if you look at Russ, obviously, yeah, he was one of the top point guards at the time, one of the most athletic, along with Derrick Rose. We all know how good he was. And so I just think, obviously, yeah, he was an all-star at the time. Obviously, he got better once he left, but yeah, he was an all-star.
Yeah, Ethan.
All right, so I would say that, yes, he got a little bit more usage, but KD leaving was not necessary to turn him into a star. 2015-16 was the last season for Russell in OKC. He had 10.4 assists that season on a relatively low for him, 23.5 points per game. But the season before that, with KD still there, he put up a league-leading 28.1 points a game, still managed to dish out 8.6 assists and 7.3 rebounds. So he was absolutely a star. Maybe he got noticed more after he left, and he did start taking a few more shots after KD left. But that 2014-15 campaign, he was taking like 22 shots a game. So he did not need KD to leave to blossom into a star. I think that he was already a star. He still is a star. But while it got him more usage and maybe more recognition with KD out of town, more recognition from the media, I don't think he really took a jump in terms of his actual skill, just in terms of his usage.
Hey, interesting. I like it. I think it's a good, solid point. Remember, sound arguments win you points here. But sometimes those sound arguments can be whack. But I'm not saying yours is whack or anything. It's actually a very good point, and you make good thing there. All right, starting with Breckin. I mean, this is a sad thing to talk about as we're all Bull fans here. Derrick Rose getting injured, but you got T-Mac, you got D Rose, you have Magic Johnson ending his career early, you have different guys like that. Now, this is going to be a question that leads up to our final in the next round, but we're going to start here. Out of those guys that never could finish their career, who would have had the greatest potential, not only as a player, but to win championships? And maybe like one time T-Mac was going to be traded to the Bulls for Scottie Pippen. Like, if stuff like that happened, who would have the greatest impact? Don't think about just Derrick Rose being so good and then just getting injured. Think about the whole overall picture between Magic, all of that. How could it have changed history?
obviously, like you said, like T-Mac, D-Rose, even Brandon Roy, if you guys know about that boy, he was cold. I would have to say T-Mac, though. Like, I think out of everyone, he probably had the most, like, raw talent and skill. He was pure scorer. If you just watch his gameplay, he was insane. And I think, obviously, Derrick Rose with the Bulls, they had a really good team, great defensively with Joakim Noah, Dang. But I still think that with T-Mac, especially with you said like trades and stuff, you don't know where he was ended up. When he was on the Rockets, he had Yao Ming. They were a solid team. When he was on the Magic, there was a solid, mostly because of him. But he was obviously like a great, talented player. Pretty sure Kobe even said that he was the hardest player he's ever had to guard. Just if you just look at this, just look at him play. Obviously, prime D Rose is insane, but I think T Mac just has the edge. And obviously, teams are what help you win championships, but you always need that one guy to just take over. And I think T Mac is that over anyone else.
All right, Ethan.
Championships, like Breckin's saying, are such a team thing, so it's very hard to say as far as championships are concerned. But in terms of individual players among those guys, I would have to put it between Derrick Rose and T-Mac because Magic Johnson, as good as he was, we saw most of his potential. He had his prime years up until he was 31 years old before the HIV virus, unfortunately, took those years away from him. That said, I would have to give a very slight edge between Rose and T-Mac in terms of potential to Derrick Rose because we're talking about a dude who was 24 years old, had literally come off 3 outstanding seasons, scoring 25 points a game at one point, and has an ACL tear that completely impacted the rest of his career. T-Mac fought through injuries a lot. He had 2 scoring titles, once scored 32 points a game. So T-Mac, we at least saw what he could do. Derrick Rose, I feel like we never saw him at his full potential, and that's what's scary because this is a guy who's averaged almost 19 points a game for his career, and we never saw his full potential. I believe we saw T-Mac's full potential. I wish we could have seen more of it, but to me, we never saw Rose's full potential, and I think that, to me, gives him the slight edge in this category.
JT. Hold up. You're on mute. There you go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's a tough question, yeah, but I think I'd have to go with Breckin on this case because as much as, like he stated, like Kobe even said that like T-Mac was one of the hardest players to guard. And like we stated before in the last, I think, question, game recognizes game. And yes, we know Derrick Rose for being such a cold player and being one of the best in the league and being the youngest person to ever get MVP, but he still got injured, and he still kept getting injured. And like we said, the trade that could have happened, T-Mac to Bulls for Scottie, that team would have been one of the most lethal teams in the entire NBA with that combo. And I feel like T-Mac had the game on the court. He knew what he was doing on the court. He even made his own stuff up on the court, and it succeeded, And so I feel like T-Mac still has the edge in this scenario.
I would just like to say one more thing. Obviously, Derrick Rose was good, but a lot of his game was based on pure athleticism, as you can like from his highlights, just driving, dunks, crazy stuff like that. Which over time, even without injuries, that's gonna leave. So we'd have to develop like a shot and stuff. But T-Mac had that skill, footwork, the shot, everything like that. So in the long run, I'd put T-Mac over Rose.
All right, so results are in. Combination of the scores. We have JT at 24 points, Breckin at 23 points, and Ethan, you're our leader at 26 points. Breckin, I'm sorry, you've been eliminated that first round. I mean, let's see right here. In the second round, Ethan. Breckin edged out JT a little in the second round, but Breckin, your early round really hurt you in the very beginning, in the second question of the show. So,
What was it?
Second question was.
I was a little underprepared for this.
Yeah, we actually had someone dip on us, everyone, Rob, but
Yeah. For
Big
those who
flakes.
don't know, this man literally just joined the show. He had no idea what was going to be on it, so shout outs to Breckin. He just signed on and gave it a darn good go here.
Well,
Okay.
the thing is too, I only give like 4 topics that might be on the show, and those guys did prepare, but Breckin did come on right on the spot, so props to him. And also, still good job to Daryl and Breckin.
See you guys. Make sure
Breckin's
to
here.
like and subscribe. Comment down below who you think won.
Hit the bell.
Get that bell on.
All right, everyone, we got Ethan and JT. Now, for the final, the score is 2 resets. So, Ethan, you do not have a little edge over JT, even though it's very minimal.
Sounds good.
So, here is the final. Now, there's going to be 2 questions. One to Ethan, and then JT can respond, and then one to JT and Ethan can respond. Based off those 2 questions, we'll get a winner. Now, this is a question that I did give you guys a little hint on. The other ones might have been more spontaneous that I asked earlier, but this one, maybe you guys should have been prepared on. This is the one that is kind of difficult. Now, if someone wins an MVP, can they win a championship in the same year? Now, if you don't get that question, I'm going to give you an example. Giannis Antetokounmpo, let's say he wins MVP again this year. He won it last year. Does it take a great player like that not winning MVP to make him get a championship, as we saw with the Bulls a little bit with Michael Jordan taking a backseat, as he wasn't the scoring leader every single year. He took a little backseat for the better overall team. He wasn't the scoring leader every time. Ethan, why are you giving me that funny look?
Well, should I go? Because
Well, no. Why are you giving me a funny look? Do you understand the question I'm asking?
no, I understand the question. I just think it's okay. Yeah,
I'm just saying.
I have a strong opinion on it. That's all.
All right, go ahead. It's all
Go
you.
ahead, Ethan. Go
Okay,
ahead. It's all you.
so to me, this is I don't know. So of course, a guy can win the MVP and win the championship in the same season. I get in the case of James Harden, maybe that you're saying some people say he's hurting his team to pack stats, but there is no curse. There is no reason why an MVP can't win a championship. The Bucks had a very good chance of winning the championship when Giannis won the MVP because Giannis was putting up great numbers and benefiting the team. 99% of the time, MVP-style play and team success go hand in hand because putting up good numbers and putting up good numbers helps the team, which helps the team win a championship. So I think it's just more that the odds of even the best team winning a championship in the modern playoff system are pretty low. So the odds that that best player does end up happening to be on the team that makes it through the gauntlet and raises that trophy are pretty low. But there is nothing barring an MVP from winning a championship. It's happened before. It's happened recently. It will happen again.
JT?
I'd have to agree. I don't have a very strong opinion on it. I just think that, like, yeah, it's like if you want the MVP, you can get the MVP. If you want the championship same year, you can definitely get it. But it's just all in the race. Everyone's in a race for the same goal. That's what the NBA is. 30 teams coming together to win a championship. And so players can outrank each other, but at the same time, they're all going for that championship. So when you take those two into account, it's not barring them at a certain level. You get MVP, oh, now you can sit back and relax and give the team whatever you want. You already won MVP. Screw it. It's whatever. I think if you still want it, you have that drive to get a championship, you can do that. There's only one person, I think it's only Kareem who's gotten an MVP and a title in the same year. And like Ethan said, it's still hard to get both. And from that one stat, only one person has been able to do it. So yeah, I agree that like nothing's barring them from getting two at the same time. It's just insanely difficult because everyone's in the same race. So.
Well, actually, there's been more than one player also, which is a little weird stat, but Kareem did do it. He was one of the first.
Okay, that's all I knew. I only knew Kareem.
Well, no big deal. Willie Reed was before him, and there's been the greats, Larry, Magic, MJ. There's been a lot of guys, Tim Duncan, LeBron, but even in the NFL, you see it's very hard for guys to win MVP and the championship for the same reason because sometimes the best player doesn't get as highlighted as much.
Yeah, I think that's probability. I think that's all that is.
Yeah,
take a look at it, but.
Well, yeah, those are both good responses. I just wanted to ask him. Now we're gonna start with JT with this next question. I'm gonna add up the scores real fast for that first round. 1 second.
This is the last round, right?
Yeah, it's the last question. And based on your responses, we'll have a winner. And remember, the scores did reset. So just give me 1 second here. Okay. Here we go. So this is more of a rather easy question. Some people more debate it more than others, but we'll see where we go here. Dynasties. There's been dynasties within each decade, within every 5 years, differently. So my question here is, you had the Celtics in the 80s. They were probably the best team, then the Lakers. Then you have the Pistons have a 2-year stint between the Celtics, the Bulls, as far as the Eastern Conference goes. Now, would you guys consider the Pistons a dynasty, for one, and then for two, the Bulls obviously were the best dynasty ever, but does a 2-year team that wins back-to-back chips like the Pistons did, the Spurs did, but the Spurs had better success in the playoffs than the Pistons did after that. But what defines a good dynasty, and are the Pistons, Spurs dynasties like that? And also, are the Warriors a dynasty right now? JT, you first.
Yeah, that's really tough. I feel like it keeps coming up that championships mean a lot in the game of basketball, especially in the NBA. You win a championship, you are barred as the best team until the next year. And we see that as a dynasty for the Bulls, we see back to back to back. That's a three-peat right there. And did the Warriors get a three-peat? I don't remember.
The Warriors won 3 championships, but they won 2 in a row, and the Cavs.
Yeah, and then the Cavs beat them, the 3-1 deficit. Yeah. So we see like you said, Bulls' greatest dynasty. I feel like the Pistons were just a stint in the Bulls' rear. Like they were just there to provoke the Bulls. And that's like what Isaiah Thomas has said. Like he knew how to get into the head of Michael Jordan. And they were a team that knew how to work around the Bulls and work them. And really just ultimately just piss them off and I think that's what they're known for. The Pistons back then were known for that. And like, I think Jordan stated it in his interview with the Last Dance, he hates Isaiah Thomas for that very reason. And so that's the answer for that. But then in regards to the Warriors being a dynasty, I would consider them to be somewhat of a dynasty in the fact that they've won championships back to back. And so they've showed that. But at the same time, I feel like, I don't know. Currently, there's been a lot of controversy with what makes dynasty and how many championships are required for a dynasty. But in this era, the Warriors have been able to come out and show that they were the best team. But yeah, that's a tough question. But I think I'd have to give it to Warriors just because they showed that they were the best team in the league 3 times during that era. So
yeah, all right, Ethan.
All right, so to me, we have to take a step back and we have to look at what the term dynasty really means. It means a reign. You are the top dog, and a dynastic reign means it's happening for a long time. And the Detroit Pistons, their reign simply didn't happen long enough. To be the top dog, you have to win the championship. They only won the championship 2 seasons, and it was like they were just starting their reign, trying to set up a generational reign, and then the Bulls assassinated their leader and just took over. So the Bulls were the ones who set up the real dynasty. The Pistons simply were cut off. Unfortunately, the Bulls were just too good of a team in that era, and they weren't able to extend their dynasty past those couple of years. To me, it doesn't necessarily have to be consecutive championships, but you need to win a lot of championships throughout a long period of time. The Warriors are kind of in between whether or not that's long enough, a span of 3 out of 4 years, but 2 straight championships is not enough to be considered a dynasty for me. You have to do something like the Bulls did or like the Celtics did way back then. Those are dynasties because just like the term dynasty, everybody else is just being crushed into submission by your rule. And I feel like that never happened for the Pistons. It was simply a short stint. I would not call them a dynasty with 2 titles.
Ethan, do you have anything about the Warriors, or are you good?
Yeah, so that's where I kind of feel like the Warriors are in between being a dynasty and not being a dynasty. They had a span of 3 and 4 years. It certainly felt like they had been good for a long period of time. They were the top team for a long period of time. But I'm not sure whether or not they simply existed long enough to be considered a dynasty, because a dynasty is generational, it is long, it feels oppressive, it feels like it's never going to end. The Warriors felt that way, but they simply didn't feel that way for long enough. So I'm not sure if I could consider that a dynasty or not. It's kind of on the edge for me.
Interesting. Well, as tight as it was throughout everyone, this whole entire show, we do have a winner. I'm gonna start off with Ethan. You had good points. The very first question, you answered pretty good. The second question about dynasties, you defined it and you gave your logical reasons. JT, you did the same. Actually, you and Ethan scored the same amount of points I had in the final round of the first question. The second question, I felt like Ethan edged you out a little. And that's why Ethan actually is our champion today. Congrats, Ethan. JT, you answered it good, but I feel like Ethan, with his he just presented the dynasty really well and gave a more definitive reason why the Pistons aren't. So props to you both. It was very close. I mean, this was a very hard show to judge. And Daryl did good, Breckin did good, JT, you did really good. But Ethan, I felt like you just edged a little more. So congrats to you, Ethan.
Man, for a dude who said you came in underprepared, one heck of a battle. This was
Appreciate it. Yeah, you as well. Well played, well played.
And JD, good work as a host. This is awesome.
Thanks, host. Big man host.
Yeah, and so remember everyone, just to stay safe out there. Hopefully, we'll get out of quarantine soon. But congrats to you, Ethan, JT. Very good job. But we'll see y'all next time. Have a good one.